Hey, everyone. It is Sleepy Reader, aka Damien, and I am here with a kind of double header of comic book thoughts. My comic book countdowns are my new comic reading diary, and so I want to be a completist for myself for this diary. So it may be of less interest because I'm going to be counting down comics from the week of October 6th and the week of October 13th. And there's been a new week of comics. This is Friday, Friday, October 22nd as I record this. And on the 20th, there were a bunch of new comics. And maybe I'll show you those plus a few other things that I picked up at the end of the video. So, but since I want to do them both, I am going to do two countdowns, one from October 6th, which was 11 comics, and one from October 13th, which was, also 11 comics. Part of the delay on all of this has been a bout of asthma, so I may be coughing or clearing my throat a bit here. Peanuts loves you, or Snoopy loves you. So let's do this with the old overhead camera here. In at number 11 from this October 6th bunch was Beyond the Black River, the Cimmerian, the fake Conan, or the real Conan that can't say his name. Because this is an adaptation of a original Robert E. Howard story, and that seems to be all they're doing. I don't know if they have the right to adapt the stories, but they don't have the right to do further Conan stories beyond the story adaptations. I don't fully understand all these intricacies of international copyright law. So in Europe, I assume they're called Conan and not the Cimmerian. But anyway, this happened to be an adaptation of a story that I have read maybe within the last 6 months or so. Like I reread it, and I thought in the prose version from the 1930s contained a very excellent portrait of Conan and his relationship to civilization and the whole issue of civilization, colonization, and, quote, savagery, or different kind of more aboriginal cultures. And I felt this really was a clunker of an adaptation. So for me, it didn't work. Maybe because I just have a whole lot of stuff in my head of what a Conan story is like. I did not like, for starters, I did not like the way Conan looked. They probably felt this was kind of an updating of him, giving him a more modern look, or I don't know. But that was a small part of it. It just on the writing level, it did not flow for me. As you can see, all the colors are kind of brownish, grayish green, which is kind of dull after a while. Are these kind of the safe colors for the modern aesthetic? You can't go wrong. People aren't going to make fun of you if you do these kind of dull, grayish, brownish tones. It's not horrible coloring, but it just got kind of dull as it went along. And I'm not sure it's interesting the way they portrayed the Picts. Now, the Picts are real ancient people in Scotland and Ireland, I believe. But Robert E. Howard kind of used them in some ways as a stand-in for Native Americans. And here they have all kinds of looks, from an African to Aboriginal to an Indian kind of look. Anyway, I don't know if I'll get the second issue. I'm guessing it's just 2 issues, maybe 3. But that was the most disappointing book. This one I picked this up because of the art, and the art really delivered, but I guess the story just really, this is Arkham City, the Order of the World. I like that title, but I put it in at number 10 because the story really, I really kind of actively disliked the story as it went on. And its approach to psychosis and serial killers and the psychosis of the therapist and everything. I don't know. It just hit me wrong. It's written by Dan Waters, who did a fantastic job on Lucifer. It's with his artistic partner, Danny, the artist, who did an incredible job and incredibly good coloring by Dave Stewart. And now here's a lesson from Dave Stewart to all you other colorists. If you want to do dark night scenes, you don't have to obscure the art. You don't have to make the colors dull to make those darker night scenes. And as I said, Danny was doing an amazing job. But I at first I thought, well, I'm not that interested right now in the Arkham Asylum and all of that. But I'll just love it for the art. But reading through it, like I said, kind of turned me off. But as I look at the art right now, I am so tempted to get the next issue, just for this excellent art. I hope we see a lot more of Danny, maybe with other writers than Dan Waters. I didn't like I found too gruesome the comic they did together at Image, whose name I can't remember. And you can tell here they want to do as gruesome a comic as possible that they can within kind of DC, the world of DC. And it's so maybe people who just like things to be disturbing will enjoy this. But for me, it just wasn't the right thing. In at number 9 was Seven Swords. Sorry, I'm looking at my list, which was hard to read. And this is a fun Aftershock book about D'Artagnan and crew post Three Musketeers and Four Musketeers, with a new kind of mission to stop the truly evil Cardinal Richelieu. I mean, now evil at a demonic kind of level. The most fun part was where they have to infiltrate the Vatican. That was pretty cool. This whole thing is very light, and it's a little hard to keep track of all the characters. I'm not even sure if we were properly introduced to all the characters, but I'm having fun reading it. I'm definitely gonna keep reading it to the end. I might even, if they did a follow-up adventure, I'd probably jump on that. The art is nice. I think they want it to be a movie, and it's scripted very much in a movie kind of way. And they probably want to cast Keanu Reeves in the lead, because the lead looks a lot like Keanu Reeves as drawn. So anyway, that was fun. And then in at number 8 is another fun book, The Last Book You'll Ever Read, one of the many Colin Bunn horror comics that are coming out right now. I think I like the first 2 issues better. It's exploring sex more here, and while that, I'll give you a quick flash. A lot of naughty pages. Whoa, yeah. I'm talking about sex makes me speechless. While it's interesting to have this sexual relationship, I couldn't tell where they were going with it, or Colin Bunn, or the artist in Colin Bunn. I couldn't tell what the point of it was or what the feelings behind it were. It just seemed to be there. And then the other major event of the book, where they get attacked by these crazy people, that seemed to be just there too. I didn't know what to make of it. So all these naked people come out of the woods and attack them. What does it all mean? So maybe in the next issue, I'll be rating this much higher when it all makes more sense to me. Still, it's a cool book. It's different. It's taking a lot of risks. So my hat's off to Colin Bunn and the artistic team. In a way, I put the Me You Love in the Dark in at number 7. And in a way, I feel kind of guilty putting it above The Last Book You'll Ever Read, because this has kind of taken a downturn for me. I think I ranked it pretty high in some other countdowns. but this is the issue where the relationship between the artist and the ghost really kicks it up a notch. They're a couple now. They spend the whole issue kind of flirting and chatting and making out or making love. And I don't know, it just didn't do a lot for me. Uh, it's sounding like I'm complaining about comics that have sex in them, but I just found their relationship kind of boring. I'm sorry. So some wonderful panels, and kind of an interesting question in my mind: is the ghost she's making out with this white thing that's drifting about, or is that separate? And the ghost is kind of a dark figure. I'm trying to find a picture of it. A lot of times we don't see it fully, which is kind of a clever conceit. We see its very dark, misty hand holding a wine glass. So it can literally drink wine, apparently. And I think near the end we do see a little more. Well, that's the most we see of it. But that is separate from this. So what's going on here? I'm not sure. I'm intrigued by that, but I think there's just 2 more issues. I'm on the fence now whether this is a good comic or kind of a waste of time. Not sure. We'll see. Time will tell. Definitely a fun comic. At number 6, it's Edgar Allan Poe's Snifter of Death, as opposed to previous volumes that were Edgar Allan Poe's Snifter of Terror and Edgar Allan Poe's Snifter of Blood. I don't think the theme has changed with death. I don't think it's more about death than before. I loved the main story that was written by Mark Russell. This is an anthology book. Every issue just has 2 or 3 short stories in some way related to Edgar Allan Poe. But Mark Russell has this series called The Monster Serials, which takes characters like Count Chocula and Frankenberry and Quaker Oats and General Mills, the old, or they still exist, cereal brands and cereal products, and makes them into characters in this kind of old B-movie horror kind of setting. And this one focuses on Count Chocula being at the stake. And we get Quaker Oats, who comes along and kind of tries to save Count Chocula. In the end, it doesn't work out very well for Mr. Quaker Oats. So I thought it was very clever. It was fun to read. I really loved the art and color, which is both by a name I'm going to have trouble pronouncing, Peter Sneelgeberg, something like that. There's his name. And Mark, as I said, Mark Russell writing. One of several Mark Russell books that'll show up in this comic. And then we had a secondary story, which was okay. It was The Adventures of Little Edgar Allan Poe, where he meets a bunch of characters that are famous from his poems, such as Lenore. And it was okay. But it was the highlight was definitely the Mark Russell story. So that was number 6. In at number 5, Snelson. This one's a hard one to place in the ranking. I know that I really appreciate this comic. It constantly makes me uncomfortable. With each issue, there's a new kind of discomfort involved. Snelson has apparently had cancer. He's now incorporated it as part of his career. He has a book deal, but is everything really what it seems? So we're not. I'm amazed that I'm still liking this book. When I read the first issue, I liked it, and I thought, well, that's all I need. I've got the whole Snelson story. But the writer, who I've never heard of before, Paul Constant, and the artist is quite good, Fred Harper, too. Lee Lowridge, the colorist, I am quite familiar with. but the rest of these people are new to me, and they're all doing a great job. So the writer is really finding ways to keep finding more subject matter in this basic, very simple situation, in a sense. And I think I really still, like I've said before with this comic, really appreciate it for not being like most comics, even most mainstream indie comics. I don't think there's stuff like this in current, really alternative comics either, but I could be wrong. So anyway, that was really cool. Another really cool comic, which I'm putting in at number 4, is Dirtbag Rapture. And it is written by Christopher Sabella, whose work I have not clicked with in the past. But this one, so far, at least with issue 1, really worked for me. This character, this woman, now I've forgotten her name. I've read too many comics lately. She transports ghosts, and she's a a heavy partier, and that partying and some, I think, electrical current or something played into giving her the power to see and transport ghosts that have been trapped near where they've died and can't move from that area. I love the coloring in the kind of ghost mental world that she has in her head. Quite a bit more than the coloring of the regular world. The coloring is not bad, but there is a lot of this sort of just fuzzy gray coloring, gray tone over the color. I don't know what you call it, what it is that colorists think they're doing. Maybe this, like that background there, maybe that looks great on a computer screen, but on the page, it just seems to weigh down the art for no particular reason. Anyway, she's a really interesting character. Again, kind of like Snelson. I mean, not as extreme, but not a likable person. Her motives are mostly selfish, but told in a way that keeps her interesting and makes the comic quite lively. And she's not a bad guy. She's just kind of a person going through life who happens to have these unusual powers. And happens to be kind of a mostly self-centered person. Anyway, very interesting comic. Another one that feels pretty unique, a little closer to the standard indie comic in that there's, the supernatural and ghosts, which we've seen in several of these other ones, but a fun read. So I'm looking forward to more of that. For whatever reason, my 2 Marvel comics ranked quite high in my brain. I just enjoyed them a lot this past week. And so I put Defenders in at number 3. This is Al Ewing writing, but the writing is a trifle. It's just a crazy cosmic trip that really, with a different artist, I think I would have just hated it. But let me get the artist's name properly. Oh, he's not credited on this page. Sorry. It's Javier Rodriguez, who I think originally was a colorist, which is oddly, he's coloring and drawing, and I'd say the coloring is the weakest part here. He comes very close to drowning out his art with the color. And his art is very good. I love his layouts and his compositions and kind of just the wacky energy he brings to this. We're traveling back through different iterations of the universe. The idea that the Big Bang is the beginning of our universe, but perhaps comes out of the end of a previous universe. And in at least Al Ewing's tales here, that's happened 6 times. Now I think we're back. We're 3 universes back now. Each issue seems to be in a different universe. Is there going to be 6 issues? I think that's how many it's going to be. If I were to take this kind of stuff more seriously, I think I'd want more issues spent per universe. But anyway, this was fun. It was just a lot of fun, and I think I really appreciated that. I'm starting to think that Al Ewing isn't as deep a writer as I thought he was in the early days of the Immortal Hulk. But anyway, he's doing a good enough job to make this work and give Mr. Fernandez a lot of, or Mr. Rodriguez, sorry, I keep calling him Fernandez, Mr. Rodriguez, a lot of cool stuff to draw. And then at number 2 was the Wild and Crazy Savage Avengers, number 25. And I've just learned it's ending at number 28. And there was even some speculation that Marvel might lose the Conan license. We'll see if that's really true or not. But apparently the Conan license has just traded owners and been bought up by some video company. So this is a really wild ride because we're doing all kinds of course, with Kang the Conqueror in the mix, all kinds of movements through time and alternate futures and alternate pasts, and Conan running around in Doctor Doom's armor. Basically, I'm loving the Conan in here, but he, unlike the Conan of usual stories, he is involving himself in a lot of magic. And some time travel too, which I suppose is science. But he's wearing all kinds of magical gear of Doctor Doom. He's got a sword that's essentially a magic sword. I guess because does it have the Venom symbiote in it? Or anyway, there's a lot of fun. It's it's way over the top. Conan's an old man now too, because so much time has gone by. It's a little disconcerting to do these big jumps in time. It feels like between these two Marvel comics that I'm looking at here, Marvel's much less rooted in the world outside my window than it may have been in the past. Anyway, a super fun read. Really great art by Patrick Zurcher. The coloring's not bad, but again, it seems unnecessarily weighted down, I guess, by some grayish colors in a sense, although that's a cool page. Anyway, so that came in at number 2, and my number 1 book for the week of October 6th was this new Rick Remender book called A Righteous Thirst for Vengeance. And it is art by, and I'm going to mispronounce his name, Andre Lima Araujo, I'm guessing, or Araujo. This is one of the variant covers. It's by Farrell Dalrymple. I did not realize I was picking up a variant cover. So anyway, it's a mostly silent comic, and that's something that I often struggle with. But Araujo does a fantastic job of conveying this character. And I guess Remender probably is doing a fantastic job at that too in his script to the artist. I love that he is kind of a regular looking guy, a bit down and out. And we follow him as he's journeying somewhere, we don't know where, on various buses, and just little difficulties with rain and wet cigarettes and, moments where he almost loses his temper with people but then doesn't. And it was quite charming in a way, and it leads up into a brutal kind of murder mystery. I guess I won't give away too much more. I will say it's coloring by Chris O'Halloran, who sometimes I really like his coloring and sometimes I don't. And for whatever reason, again, he uses this technique of some kind of, I don't know, weird fuzzy filter over all the colors that drowns out the line work a bit. So in some of the lighter sections, you really appreciate how great the line art is. And then you get, these nighttime scenes where you can hardly see anything and you have no dialogue here. So you rely entirely on the line art, and you need to basically shine a really bright light on the page to get a vague sense of what's going on. Why color this way? And do they realize that most comics are still read on the physical page? Only a small percentage of the audience is using digital. And I'm not sure how this looks digitally. Now here, of course, that's okay, that's fine. But I just don't understand some of these coloring choices. And again, it's probably because I'm an old man. So phew, I thought I'd go through that quicker. So then I straggled into the next week, which I guess had the same number of comics, but it feels like a much thicker stack. So there were some big comics in here. So this is now October, the comics that came out October Wednesday 13th, and a very clear loser was Kazaar, Lord of the Savage Land. I really loved the first issue. It still has fantastic art. No problem with the coloring here. I think if there was any theme of this week of October 13th stack, was a lot of comics where I had a bit of trouble picking back up where we left off. And there was a little bit of that here in the Kazaar thing, and the whole story just got kind of, I don't know, it just seemed narratively like a jumbled mess. There seemed to be some kind of ecological message going on here, but it didn't get through very well, and it didn't in any way help the story. So it's really unfortunate because it looks really nice, but this was one of those comics where I was just forcing myself to read it after a while because it was just like it was gobbledygook in my brain. But I don't know what to do, whether to drop this or not, because I love the artwork so much. And now there's some use of the broad palette that modern comic book colors have without obscuring or doing anything bad to the line art, and just pleasing the eye, for me. Other people may just absolutely love that kind of coloring, but not me. And I don't think to be a modern colorist, this is modern coloring. You have to go with that dark gloom. Sometimes when I'm reading and looking at modern comics, I feel like there's a certain uptightness, like maybe it's their peers will think they're uncool if they don't do things a certain way or something. I don't know. Probably all in my imagination. Anyway, the great shame with that at number 11. At number 10 was another. This was a perfect example of my frustration going from what I could remember of the previous issue, which I didn't like very much, to this issue of Strange Tales. So I kind of have come the last few issues of Strange Tales, I've just not clicked with a whole lot or felt frustrated by Tom King's approach to what superheroes are all about. So all of that kind of colored this. In a way, there was a lot of good dialogue and some interesting stuff going on, but ultimately, and I really am now a huge fan of Doc Shaner. I love the Doc Shaner pages, but I couldn't quite remember. I guess I have to go back and read the whole thing. Do I really have to go back and read this whole comic again? Maybe it's worth it. I'll have to see, but I just felt like, wait a minute, I don't remember. We start off, I guess Adam Strange is dead. I forgot that he die in the previous issue? And I don't remember that Alana, Adam Strange's wife, and Mr. Terrific were kidnapped by the aliens, or no, going to meet the aliens on their spaceship. A lot of it just doesn't make enough sense to me because I couldn't remember. But so it goes. It gets, for my own personal enjoyment, as this list is based on my own personal enjoyment, it gets at number 10. At number 9, wait, I'm looking at the wrong list here. Not that I have got the numbering wrong, but at number 9 is Deadbox, issue number 2. I loved issue number 1. I think I made it my number 1 comic of that whatever week it came out. This one was a belly flop, and I guess I enjoyed it a little more just because of the remaining glow of how much I liked the first issue. I guess that cuts both ways. Liking the first issue so much makes this feel like even more of a drop, but there's still some little touches of art and humor that made me not put it at the bottom of the list. But this time, Mark Russell takes a real extreme view of a very, I think, a Baptist church, kind of strict Baptist church. I guess he's playing it for laughs, but it needed some more nuance or something. That because this guy wore some women's pants without realizing they were women's pants and he liked them, his wife, who says she loves him, now thinks she has to leave him, and even the minister of the church seems to think he needs some serious reforming or something. And I don't know. I have listened to Mark Russell interviews where he said he was raised in a strict born again kind of family, so maybe he knows more about this than I do since I was raised Catholic. But it just rang wrong for me. And then the movie within the story, because that's the conceit of this, we get the story of someone's life in this town of, what's it called, Lost Turkey or something like that. Yeah, Lost Turkey. And then we also get to see some bizarre movie that the Red Box, Dead Box has given them. Again, this is not, so far, still not a horror story. But it reminded me a lot of Kurt Vonnegut in the first issue. I don't know what it reminds me of in this issue. But so the movie within the story was about people experimenting on monkeys, and it just didn't gel for me either. I mean, it was supposed to be a spoof of romantic comedies, but it didn't come off that way at all. I guess it did the familiar theme of animals being abused by humans, in a sense, that I remember from the Flintstones with Mark Russell, and some of his other comics was there. Anyway, a weird issue. I'm not dropping Dead Box at all. I'm very curious what Mark Russell will do next with that. So that's my second Mark Russell comic of this this doubleheader. Then in at number 8, it was Ordinary Gods. It's an ordinary comic about gods hidden among us. It's a pretty good story. Couldn't the coloring be? The coloring again was maybe my biggest problem. I don't think that Ordinary Gods will ever hit the top of my charts unless something unusual happens. Like it feels like a very familiar kind of story now. There's just a lot of comics that I've read that have this kind of story going on, but it's fun enough, and I like that basic story of some group of magical people hidden amongst us that have been there a long time, coming to conflict with each other. And there was an intriguing aspect of one of the characters being a thief who, even after doing a big score, can't resist picking someone's pocket. Now he happens to be picking the pocket of someone else who's one of these hidden ordinary gods, so that was interesting. But man, if there were different coloring here, I think this could be a much more lively, more fun comic to read. So, I mean, it doesn't suffer from the really dark coloring that Thirst for Vengeance comic did, but still, yeah. Okay, and then up at number 7 was Engine Word, a kind of similar, the general theme of I can't remember what happened in the previous issue well enough. So even though we've read 12 issues of this comic, I'm still, and this is the finale, and last issue was kind of a finale, so this is like the finale of the finale in a way. I couldn't immediately remember. This is one half of Gemini, and I couldn't remember what happened to her other half. I couldn't at first remember that she was Gemini. And I can't, there's talk of this character's father. I couldn't remember who her father was. So I think there was a big gap between issue 11 and 12, if I'm remembering correctly. And like, even though I'm sort of like wishing I knew more about these characters, I also find myself thinking, I understand there were 12 villains all based on the Zodiac, so they wanted to have 12 issues. But if this were a tighter story that maybe lasted, I don't know, 7 or 8 issues, it might have read better and it might have been easier to keep track of everything, that it was kind of spread out. But still, I enjoyed it. I've enjoyed the ride. I have no regrets in reading all 12 issues of Engine Word and enjoying the fantastic covers. That's actually one of the weaker covers. And I'm not sure who that is. Is that Gemini? No, that's someone else. So kind of cool. It has kind of odd coloring too, but it works. The odd coloring works here. Again, kind of, I don't know what they do. Is that there's just a sense of a haze over color a lot. But yeah, a nice, it's a science fiction book. There's some familiar aspects to it, but there's a lot of originality to it. I look forward to seeing more work by this creative team, perhaps Mann and Eisema. And the colorist was Michael Garland. So anyway, it just ended a little bit after my interest in it had faded a bit. So then I enjoyed perhaps much more than it deserved. I put at number 6, The Secret Land, the finale 4 of this comic about secret Nazi experiments and lovers who've been separated from each other. And spoiler, we did get a happy ending. And I felt, I've been complaining about the art a little bit all along, but I felt like the art served the story pretty well at the end, with some weird creatures and the sense of odd stuff coming from other universes. The coloring could have been better. It was kind of just workmanlike, okay coloring. But I feel like the line artist kind of stepped things up a bit for this final issue, and did a better job than he or she has been doing before. Tomas, so probably a he, or a they. So, yeah, I this whole series kind of hit some buttons that of stuff I enjoyed. I wish it had been done even better, but it brought out enough of kind of a variation on Lovecraftian themes and such that it was worth a read for me, and I'm glad I read it. It probably could have been better served with maybe an extra issue, but there you go. And then we've got at number 5, The Unbelievable Unteens, which, yeah, I'm enjoying this quite a bit. There's at least one more issue. I hope there's a little more than one more issue. We have the interesting Tyler Crook doing his regular kind of art, and then doing his art that's supposed to be like Bronze Age or Silver Age comics. I'm not sure he quite captures the feel of those kind of comics, but it's still, he's got to do what he's got to do, give his own art style, and it's enjoyable. The odd thing is the backstory is dominating over the front story. Maybe that's just this issue. We kind of now have the whole problem explained, I guess, as to why Unteens no longer exist and why that someone magically erased their memories. So I had fun reading it, but somehow, it's not at the very top, and that's probably just because the Black Hammer thing, the Black Hammer universe, and the bittersweet style that Jeff Lemire has done so well with it have just become very familiar and perhaps a bit overplayed. And my other thought is, I love Tyler Crook's artwork, but this may not have been the best project for his particular talents. It seems less exciting than other works by him. Like I loved I loved when he did the what was I can't the that sort of Adam Strange based character that they did before the miniseries. Can't remember the name. Anyway, the big book of the week, Immortal Hulk number 50, the grand finale. I put it number 4. Maybe because the last 10 issues or more of the Hulk of this series have kind of drooped. And so a finale to those drooping issues can't really win as big as it might have had the series kept at the level that it had established early on in the run. As other people have commented, this probably would have been better, if Al Ewing didn't know he was supposed to stretch it out for 50 issues, if he had told his story in a shorter number of issues. And now I think this was like 80 pages or more. So I guess at $10, it's not a bad deal. It's kind of like a floppy graphic novel. And amazingly, for doing so many pages, Joe Bennett's artwork really holds up throughout. And it's a real pleasure. And I am very sad that Marvel and Al Ewing couldn't talk with Joe Bennett and work out with him whatever issues have come up. There's claims of anti-Semitism against him, and I don't know what that's really all about and what it really means. And I don't know. I think they could. I'm just imagining they could have talked with him rather than just canceling him and work something out. But maybe not. Maybe they've tried to talk with him and there's no compromise available. Or compromise is the wrong word. No understanding available. But this is part of what's made this series seem like it was going to be a masterpiece was that Joe Bennett was the right artist for the right story. And so on that level, I really enjoyed it. It was kind of fun. There's still too many areas that I have become fuzzy on. We got all these variations of the Hulk, and I still am kind of working out who's who. And so yeah, the red Hulk is actually Joe Fixit at this point, I guess. And I guess we have an appearance of God. So another interesting thing to me that struck me, because I'm a little upset that Joe Bennett and Marvel couldn't work out whatever the problems or accusations are against Joe Bennett, is that the theme at the end of this story was forgiveness. The theme of this issue is forgiveness. And all the way down to the bottom of hell, in a sense, we get forgiveness, which I think is a great theme and one that is an important one for everybody to have in the world. But because without forgiveness, there's no progress. So another interesting thing is, and I love that they went to the expense of doing a very creative fold-out page, where this picture works, and then you get a whole other picture there. And I guess that's the appearance of G.O.D. I didn't really understand that part. But as I flip through it, I'm just kind of loving it all over again. I think I will do a reread of the entire 50 issues and see if it all makes a bit more sense to me and see where it's all going. Yeah, so I was quite cynical of having to pay $10 for this, but I think it ended up being a package that was worth the money. I kind of wish there was a non-square-bound version where I could fold out and see that Alex Ross cover in its full glory. But anyway, very, very cool package. Marvel actually giving us our money's worth. And in fact, the cover stock is thicker. Whoa, what's up with that? Okay, in at number 3, uh, a series that I've been enjoying the heck out of, Six Sidekicks of Trigger Keaton. This issue was fun, but part of me was like, do we really need an entire issue that's a giant fight scene? Um, and I think it could have been a lot better with better coloring, because it's the semi-monotone colors. That's probably the wrong word, monotone. That's a sound thing. Look kind of nice, but when you've got all these tiny figures and they're actually the main story is the fight between all these tiny figures, and they become hard to parse. I've really actually come to love Chris Schweizer's odd line style, but then he himself, as the colorist, kind of covers it up rather than finding colors that can highlight it. He does in some flashback scenes do a really nice color. And there we can really appreciate all the different figures and such. But in the big fight scene, maybe because it would take him so long to color it, just a lot is lost by the color choices, in my opinion. I mean, it's not too much of that haziness, although there's a little bit of that, but it's more just the monotones of the colors causing a problem. See, there's a page without so much monotones, and all the figures really pop, and you can really appreciate his cartooning better. But overall, I'm really enjoying this. I assume that it's going to be 6 issues, and maybe it would be best that it doesn't overstay its welcome. Although I'd love to return to this world with a different with this. I don't know how you could actually return to this world, but I've been having so much fun here with the 6 sidekicks of Trigger Keaton. Again, a book that's not like any other book, which makes it extra cool. Perennial favorite for me in at number 2 is Norse Mythology by, kind of by Neil Gaiman and P. Craig Russell. Russell does the adaptation and the layouts and gets different artists to do the art every time. Most of them have been colored by Laverne Kinderziski, whose coloring I love. Look how clear and beautiful it is on the cover. But Gabriel Hernandez Walta does his own coloring and actually does a beautiful job of it. He again uses that, I don't know, maybe it's to like give a sense that your art is on a canvas or something, but there seems to be underlying haze or texture to it. But this is the best coloring I've ever seen on his artwork. It's clear, and it works very well with the story and gives it a sense of maybe being on some old parchment, a bit of a watercolor feeling here and there. It's amazing how many of these stories are really about Loki. Thor and Loki often, but with Loki maybe being a little more of the major character as the rascal, as the trickster, as the troublemaker who makes more trouble than he perhaps intended to, and then has to squirm his way out of it. But the gods need these apples to stay immortal, and they lose their supply. It was fun seeing them all get old. I think this is the first half of the story. The only negative ever about these Norse mythologies is they don't say to be continued. This did have like chapters, chapter 4. So chapter 4 is one page, or are we going to get page 2 of chapter 4 at the beginning of the next issue? My clue that the story was not done and that we'll see more is just that the ad for next issue shows that Gabriel Hernandez Walta is still going to be the artist working on it. So anyway, fun comic, consistently enjoyable. I had my doubts, adapting novels is not my favorite mode for comics, but it works really well with this Norse mythology, which isn't really a novel anyway. In at number one, a big surprise to me, from the third or fourth Mark Russell comic in these 2 weeks, is the final issue of Second Coming, Only Begotten Son, and it's an interesting mixture of Christianity and what do you call it? Secular humanism, as they used to talk about, a humanistic kind of view of things. I think there's a lot of humanism in in the Jesus part of the New Testament, anyway. So anyway, I can't really describe why this issue clicked with me so well, but it did. It had the right mix of humor and philosophy and life lessons and plays on comic book stuff, like Superman with his kryptonite. What do they call it here? His name is Sunman or Solar Man, and this is Solanite. But anyway, it was really fun. Nice colors, nice art, lots of character beats for a lot of different characters. Mark Russell has a particular skill, for me anyway, in my reading of him, of pulling off the endings of comics really well, and that's quite rare. And so it shines back on all the rest of the issues, or if you read it in a trade, would be very satisfying when you get to the end. The Church of Jesus Christ Latchkey Kid. Anyway, apparently there's going to be more. It doesn't feel like there needs to be more. It feels like this makes a nice final statement. In fact, during the course of the 6 issues, I've kind of felt like it was wandering off in different directions, but it's all pulled back together by this final issue. So, happy ending for me. I'm recording right now on OBS, so it doesn't really show me how long I've been going, which is probably a bad thing. Excuse me. So I picked up a bunch of things this past Wednesday, now 2 days ago. I'll show you the comics and the graphic novels. And there's some other stuff I was going to show you. Oh, well. I picked up Maria Lovett's Porcelain #3. I loved the first 2 issues. It's a cool, surreal, dreamlike story with incredible art and nice color. Now I look at it. We got Eat the Rich #3. I'm looking forward to this. It's kind of quite horrific. Not quite sure where it's going to go, because we kind of revealed a lot in issue 1 and 2. I think it's a 5-issue series. Like the color inside, much better than the color on the cover. Savage Hearts. I peeked at the end, and it's not over, which made me really happy, because I'm really enjoying this comic, and a lot. It says to be concluded, so there'll be 5 issues instead of 4. A lot of Dark Horse comics have just been going 4, and that's been a bummer, because I think 5 or 6 is a better length for most stories. Anyway, that's going to be real fun. Issue 2 of Gun Honey. I enjoyed Gun Honey issue 1 quite a bit. I don't like that cover very much, but I can see that it's perhaps to a lot of other people's tastes. Another Mark Russell comic, Not All Robots #3. This one has been growing, well, in the first 2 issues, growing on me. I had a slight issue with the differential between the art style and the writing style, but I think I'm going to get used to that. Super excited for yet another Usagi Yojimbo, the 5th issue of the 12-issue saga, The Dragon Bellow Conspiracy. I feel that's hard to say, Dragon Bellow Conspiracy. You have a conspiracy to bellow? So it's a dragon being below seemed... So I've been saying it wrong, was pointed out to me by Jared Osborne. Thor with Throg on the cover. Thor's kind of been dipping down for me. I'm sticking with it, hoping it will jump back up. I hadn't decided whether or not to get issue 2 of the Death of Doctor Strange, because really I can read this. Look at all those wrinkles on the cover, ripples on the cover. I can read this in Marvel Unlimited in a few months, but I really enjoyed issue 1, which I foolishly decided to try, so that has kind of sucked me in, and I thought, well, I'll try issue 2. And then Catwoman, Lonely City. Hard to resist because Cliff Chang artwork. He's also the writer on this, and I don't know if that's going to be a good or bad thing. And I'm still a little weary of stories set in the Batman world, so I hope I haven't made a mistake there, but I just couldn't resist it because I love Cliff Chang artwork. And then I also, it wasn't from this week, but I picked up The Lot number 4. I think it's a 4-issue series from Bad Idea. For their comics at only $6, it's one of the less expensive ones. I really wanted to read Pirate Queen 2, but that one is like $8 for a regular size comic. So there's just no way I'm going to do that. But I haven't read any of The Lot yet, so it's one I've got to kind of shotgun the 4 issues. We'll see. I mean, they claim, and it gets under my skin worrying that what if they really stick with their promise not to release these as trades someday? I'm assuming that's a total lie, though. And then in trade, I picked up Far Sector, which I've heard some really good things about from the multiple award-winning science fiction author N.K. Jemisin and Jamal Campbell art. How's the coloring going to look? Not so sure about that coloring. But anyway, I'll live. And then I don't even know why I bought this. I'm never going to be a letterer, I don't think. But I bought the comic book, The Essential Guide to Comic Book Lettering. It wasn't too expensive. It's a $16 book. I don't know why I got it. Just kind of this obsession of backseat driving on comics, knowing more about the craft of it. I'm at that level of the hobby where I just like to know all this stuff. So anyway, I've a book on tape I've been listening to is Rob Halford's Confess, and I've really been enjoying it. He does the reading, Rob Halford of Judas Priest fame. He is his own narrator, and he has a great voice for an audiobook, and he has a cool story. I actually really liked the part that was about his childhood and early adulthood before the band sort of became the big part of his life, although that part is interesting too. Let's see.
We knew it was a huge opportunity that we had to seize, and we did. In the scorching sunshine, I roomed on stage on my Harley, and we powered into...
Anyway, so I think that narration really helps. And then I thought I had 2 other books I was going to show you that I'm reading, but they're way over there. Hang on a second. I am reading All of the Marvels by Douglas Wolk, which was, I guess he's a big friend of the shop, Words with Pictures. Wait, is it called Words? Books with Pictures, sorry. Books with Pictures. So I am on chapter 3 of this. Douglas Wolk read every... so he's a big friend of that bookstore, and so they made a big deal of the coming of this book. And he read every Marvel comic book from 1961 to 2017 or 18, every single Marvel comic, and then wrote this book about it. And he's a very good writer. I really enjoy his prose. I'm not sure. I mean, obviously the book is only 350 pages, so he can't tell us about everything he read. I'm not sure what his approach is going to be in the end, but like what is the feeling you get when you've read every Marvel comic. But cool, by a mainstream publisher, by Penguin Press. So that's interesting. And then I'm slowly working my way into Mort Cinder, a comic drawn by Alberto Breccia, written by Hector Germain Osterheld, who I've heard a lot about from Gore Vidal and also from Earl Grey. And I finally realized, hey, I should see if I can get a hold of a copy, because I really liked Alberto Breccia's Dracula comic. And this one, I can't quite figure out what it's really all about yet, but it's about this dealer in antiques, antiquarian dealer, and these kind of supernatural events that he gets sucked into. And it has this really cool black and white artwork. I'm not doing a good job of showing it. It's a bit irritating. Some of the stories are presented in a sideways format, and that's a little hard to read in this hardback book. But other than that, that's why I was having trouble showing you the artwork. A real taste of a whole different approach to a supernatural comic than we get from our usual American mainstream indies. It's funny that I use the word mainstream indie, but that's the way I think of what most of the comics I like now are. There's genre indies, I suppose you could call them that too. Okay, well, I think I've gone on a really long time. Thanks for sticking with me, and hopefully I'll be back not too far in the future with another countdown. And I still keep hoping to do other videos, like looking at some art books and such. So anyway, hope everyone's having a good comic book week, and I'll talk to you later.